Okay, welcome back. In this segment, we're going to talk about a legal term that is a key, kind of a center point for at least the state that I am in, which is Utah. That key term is 4 words. It's smooth and easily cleanable. And it is the measuring stick for what has to go to the landfill versus what can stay. And it is very much a legally defined term as opposed to being kind of on the face obvious. You'd be surprised as to what's considered to be smooth and easily cleanable versus not. And we're going to go over that in this segment. So first off, and you can get more information on this on my website, crossroadsengineers.com/meth. But the items that go would include, for example, you've got those acoustic ceiling tiles. Sometimes people put those in their basement when they finish their basement themselves. And those obviously are not smooth and they're not easily cleanable. And so those are going to have to go. I should mention that in many cases, what is smooth and easily cleanable could depend very much on who the county inspector is, because some people see things differently. For example, on my right-hand side down here in my man cave studio, we've got sheetrock over here, and over here we've just got insulation that is covered by plastic. So the plastic is smooth and easily cleanable, but the insulation behind it is not. And some county inspectors might decide that since they can see the insulation, that it needs to go. Obviously, that adds a lot more work if you got to go all the way around the basement and remove the insulation. Sometimes you can see insulation between the joists in a basement, and that obviously is not smooth and easily cleanable, so it has to go. Unless it's behind sheetrock, and so it's not seen, and now it doesn't have to go. So ceiling tiles, those do need to go. Insulation, I mentioned, sometimes it can be painful what's considered to be not smooth and easily cleanable. For example, if you've got a TV in there, maybe there's an 80-inch TV that's in this house. The face of the TV is smooth and easily cleanable, but the guts behind the TV, those are not cleanable at all. And so as a result, a TV is considered to be not smooth and easily cleanable, and it has to go. Painful. Similarly, couches, for example. Maybe a leather couch is considered to be smooth and easily cleanable, whereas a microfiber couch or a fabric type couch is not smooth and easily cleanable. You can probably tell the difference, and it is a very fine point. Obviously leather, you can't get down between, you can't get underneath, you can't reasonably clean underneath. You do have that fabric that is beneath the cushions on a leather couch, but at least the county people that I have talked to don't have a problem with that. They want to see the surfaces, and if the surfaces are leather, you're okay, and if it's not leather, then you're not okay. Similarly, maybe if you've got a wood chair, that might be considered to be smooth and easily cleanable if somebody really wants to pay to keep that thing. Again, referring to this room that I'm in, my man cave office, there is an office chair that is leather, but it's got all these little creases in there, and it's got the armrests, and it would be a pain in the hiney to try and treat, but based on what the county says, that would be smooth and easily cleanable. So you could actually decontaminate that in the house and let it stay if somebody really wanted those sorts of things to stay. Similarly, you've got a wood desk that also is smooth and easily cleanable. Furniture, I mentioned that. Mattresses, of course, are a fabric type material, so they are not smooth and easily cleanable. If it's a mattress, it's just got to go. The exception to that might be, perhaps, if you can get away with it, maybe a mattress that is in a plastic surround, where that plastic sleeve has never been opened, it's sealed all the way around. You might be able to get the county to buy off on letting that stay, but that's kind of what you're up against. Draperies must go, By contrast, blinds can often stay. And that one got me once because the house had a number of blinds all the way around, and the client was a bank, and the bank wanted to keep those blinds. If you do leave something that is additional like this, that is allowed to stay, the county is going to require you to sample it. And I started doing the math, and I thought, hey, these are not that good of blinds. There's a billion of them. I can sample 3 on one sample, but there's probably 20 blinds. And so I went around and I thought, okay, that's another 7 samples I got to do, which by itself is about 250 bucks. And so I decided it was not worth the work. I took them down, I threw them away, sent them to the landfill. And the bank hadn't been terribly clear that they really, really, really wanted those blinds, but now that they're gone, they were very upset. Of course, they had to replace the blinds. They didn't want to spend the money on blind replacement. So that one comes down to a matter of just poor communication between myself and the client as to how bad they wanted to keep them versus how bad I wanted to get rid of them. Another example I have of what is iffy in the smooth and easily cleanable category, I did a remediation up on the hillside in Salt Lake City where the client, the guy who owned the home, is a pediatric surgeon. And of course he makes some money, and he had this nice home. It was about 4,000 square feet there on the East Bench. And he had decided, I guess a couple of years previous, that that home wasn't quite cool enough for him. So he went up to Park City and he got himself a bigger, nicer cabin. Out of kindness to his loser son, who was the meth head, he decided to let the son live in this other home for free. This happens so often. You'll find this as a very routine sort of a circumstance where it's somebody enabling the meth head. But in any case, this kid, and he was probably about 28 years old, he had some children, had a girlfriend, and according to his story is he brought the girlfriend in and she did the meth, and she did it with him theoretically, but there was a lot of meth in there. The problem was that there was a grand piano, very nice one. It was worth about $30,000 based on what we could estimate. This piano, of course, you want to keep a $30,000 unit, but you've got strings, you've got pads, you've got strikers, and if you start cleaning those with nasty chemicals, you might as well have just thrown it away because it's brutal. So it became very iffy as to what could be done with this piano. The way that particular story ended up working out is that the meth head himself ended up getting certified as a meth remediator, and it became his one and only job to decontaminate this piano. I felt good about that because I didn't want to be the guy that got blamed for ruining the piano trying to save it. So it worked out nicely for me. It caused a great deal of angst amongst the state and the county as to how they would allow a meth head to become certified as a meth remediator. And I can certainly understand their concerns, but it worked out well for me. Because I knew that my liability as relates to that piano were kind of gone away. So those are the category of what goes. And under the category of piano, I said the piano is iffy. Now, if that were a $2,000 piano, or maybe even a $5,000 piano, it might not be worth that much effort. And that piano, for all of its value, would have to go to the landfill. It's terrible. Okay, now what stays? You've got appliances. You've got not only the appliances in the kitchen. Maybe you've got the microwave. If it's a loose microwave and it's not that great, I'll chuck it. But you got the dishwasher and the stove and oven. The fridge are going to stay. Generally, the light and the blower that is above the stove and oven is considered to not be an appliance, unless perhaps it's got the microwave there, and then it is an appliance. And so you see how things get just kind of we're getting further and further away from what is considered smooth and easily cleanable. There's exceptions and there's exceptions to the exceptions, but anyway, you got all the kitchen appliances that are there, and then you've got your washer and dryer that are down in the laundry room. Those are all appliances. They can stay, but again, if they stay, you as the remediator have to test those things separately to verify that they have been successfully decontaminated. Salt Lake County will allow you, normally you got to do 3 samples on items. They will allow you to do up to 4 on appliances, and that helps because in kitchens, between the stove and oven and refrigerator and dishwasher and whatever else, you can have more than 3 or 4 appliances, and so it starts to get pretty spendy to sample a lot of them. By the way, the disposal is not an appliance, and you don't have to really worry about that. It seems to be one of those out of sight, out of mind things where it's underneath the kitchen sink. So that's not considered to be an appliance, and it's rare. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever sampled a disposal. Just put that one in the back of your database. So appliances, sheetrock. Now, unpainted sheetrock to me is far from being smooth and easily cleanable. It's not smooth. It's got all those pores in the paper. You can imagine meth particles could get into those pores and they're not going to get back out very easily, but it is in the category of being smooth and easily cleanable. Same thing with in unfinished basements. You're going to have joists that go above your head. Those are wood. Those would not seem to be smooth and easily cleanable, but you can't remove those or you might as well rebuild the whole house. So those are defined to be smooth and easily cleanable. So you're going to hit those as you treat those. Same thing with a concrete floor. If you asked your wife if a concrete floor was smooth and easily cleanable, she'd probably tell you no. There's all those pores down there, there's cracks, but you can't physically remove the concrete floor, so it's smooth and easily cleanable. Similarly, maybe the subfloor. If you get the carpet off and the pad off, what remains is this chipboard subfloor, and sometimes maybe it's plywood, and in some cases you're actually going to have that plywood have wear and tear to the point that there's slivers, etc. Still, that subfloor is smooth and easily cleanable as interpreted by the counties. So that means that's going to stay and you're going to treat it. Okay, cabinets and countertops are considered to be cleanable. Light fixtures. And light fixtures gets kind of iffy too, because you can imagine, for example, a chandelier. There is no way that you're going to be able to treat every one of those crystals on a chandelier, but it is still considered to be smooth and easily cleanable, and that can stay. By contrast, light fixtures with maybe a ceiling fan on them, they are still considered to be smooth and easily cleanable. If you allow those to stay, you need to make double sure that you get not only the bottom side of those fan blades, but the top side. That's where the dust is. And if somebody checks the top side and it's still got a 1/4 inch of dust, that's going to be proof that you suck. You're going to look bad, and you're going to draw, there will be no forgiveness for you and anything else that is found. They're going to make you go back and redo that, and then they're going to be harder on you and everything else that they find. So make sure you get the top side of the fan blades. Asbestos ceiling texture, also known as the popcorn ceiling texture. Some people call it the cottage cheese ceiling texture. It's that white stuff. It is on homes, the asbestos is on homes that were built, or at least the texture was done about 1979 or earlier. Generally, it's the mid to the late 70s when you see that stuff that actually had asbestos in it. Given that you are probably not an asbestos certified contractor, you're going to want to just leave that alone. Don't treat it, just don't mess with it. The county understands that it is what it is. Now it's asbestos that has meth on it. We're not going to mess with that. So you just when you're sampling, you sample high on the wall instead of on that ceiling, and you're just going to leave that alone. That can stay but you don't treat it, you don't sample, you don't do anything with it. Fireplace masonry. Now you think of a brick, and that's probably the last thing that you would consider might be deemed to be smooth and easily cleanable. But sure enough, and this one runs into another story that I have. It was up near a university where there had been a meth head that contaminated that property, and I got a call from a guy who had been shell-shocked because he had been given a 5-figure price to do the decontamination, mostly because you've got this fireplace inside the house and the house was contaminated. So they were thinking that the entire surround on the fireplace had to be removed as part of the decontamination. Obviously, again, the masonry is not smooth and easily cleanable, so the first thought is it's got to go. Well, I made a call to the county, and I called the supervisor, who's a good guy, who's reasonable, who gets it. He's got some experience. He's not trying to prove how intelligent or powerful he is. So he basically told me, look, you can leave the masonry there as part of the remediation, and we might just decide to sample it as part of the sampling to make sure that the room is actually successfully decontaminated. The way it turned out is we actually didn't sample that masonry on the fireplace. I think at least half of the reason for that is because you don't really get a good sample when you're trying to sample a surface as coarse as that. So the bottom line, I got the job because I made the phone call and I asked the question. And instead of this guy having to pay a 5-figure fee, I was able to do this job for about half of that. I was happy. I got a job that still paid me quite well. And the client was, of course, happy. And I actually picked up some follow-on work from somebody that he recommended to me. So moral of that story is, don't assume. You can always ask questions. And the county always has the final word on, what is and is not. In this case, smooth and easily cleanable. They've got the rule book. And it's, I guess, one more story I could tell you. Carla. She was saying, well, why don't you clean up, blah, blah, blah. And, the argument was basically, look, I'm a decontaminator, not a cleaner. And she says, well, why don't you do things this way? And I said, well, there's only one rule book, and it is yours. And my job is to find out what your rules are and to follow them. And that is pretty much the case. You're going to have different counties that look at the state law and see things very differently. And then even within the same county, you're going to have inspectors that look at the state and county rules and interpret them so very differently. And you've just got to learn what each individual's rule book is so that you can follow that rule book. For example, Carla will show up with a white glove and she'll start touching surfaces, and if she gets dust on her finger, especially from the heat vents, then she's going to consider it to be not clean, regardless of what the sampling may have shown. I actually had one where I got it down to non-detect in every room, but it still didn't pass her white glove test, so she wanted me to clean this home some more. By contrast, you've got other guys who may or may not want to see the squirrel cage directly, who may or may not stick their camera up into the ducts to see what the picture looks like. You've got guys who might just walk through the house, and if you sampled in, wall, ceiling, and floor of every room, and you got the appliances, and you got the HVAC, and you got your sample blank, that's good enough for them. They're not going to bring the white glove. They're not going to bring the camera. They're not going to look in the squirrel cage. It's a fact of life. You've got to learn what their rule book looks like and follow that set of rules. You can cry and whine about it to whoever, but that's the bottom line, is it's their rule book. Okay, fireplace and masonry, I mentioned that one. So it's going to be a learning curve for you, and there's not a lot I can do more than help you out. Sometimes you just got to learn who the psycho people are and learn how to deal with them. That's just going to be something that you're going to have to do. If it is Salt Lake County and you are dealing with Carla, just be aware that she is Miss White Glove. But I'm sure that in many counties across the country, you're going to have one or two psycho people. Maybe it's California and everybody's psycho, who knows. But that's, you're going to have to learn the rules. Next segment, we'll talk about what the treatment process looks like, and we'll be right back.